in Flushing, Queens today, and I am standing in front of what is my favorite backdrop for any clip filmed here, which is the 700,000 pound Unisphere, massive model of the globe built out of steel that was built for the 1964 World's Fair, which was held right here on these grounds.
And clear of the closing doors, please.
And if you've ever been here, unless you're from Queens, it becomes readily apparent how far outside of New York City's center we are. So it's kind of great that this monument, which is supposed to bring people from all around the world, makes its case that this is like the center of the universe. The purpose of these World's Fairs was basically to drum up commerce and to get foreign investors to build pavilions to show off their consumer goods. And at this World's Fair, like, you had the 1964 Ford Mustang being introduced, you had video calling. Disney did their Small World animatronics display, which anticipated Disney World.
Welcome to Futurama 2.
But basically, these were money-making ventures planned by a cash-strapped city that needed investors to come into New York City in the 1960s. So this area had been a freshwater swamp up until about 1910, when a corrupt Tammany Hall political boss named, I'm not kidding, Fishhooks McCarthy, bought this land for super cheap and turned it into one of the most polluted ash dumps in the country. The idea to turn this into a fairgrounds was the brainchild of the Parks Commissioner at the time, a guy named Robert Moses. So Moses's plan was to direct money from both like city and state to build a World's Fair in 1939. And the designer of all of the fountains and walkways and the skate spot itself was a guy named Gilmore David Clark, who worked very closely with Robert Moses on a lot of his parkway and highway and different park infrastructure at this time. He was kind of like the in-house architect for the city commissioner. And so this fountain and all of the sort of like different pavilions from the 1964 fair were built basically in the footprint of the 1939 fair. The theme of the 1939 World's Fair was the future. And there was this big, giant, huge sphere that you could walk inside and see all these displays right here. And the theme of the 1964 World's Fair was peace through better understanding. And to many different people, the ultimate symbol of what was great and what was terrible, depending on how you looked at it, was the Unisphere here. This giant 700,000 pound advertisement for US Steel.
The New York World's Fair. In a word, it's the greatest.
And just so that there's no mistake about like who produced this and when, there are these 4 little placards at different points along the fountain that not only announce that US Steel is responsible for this, but also now act as like kind of nice little either high table-sized ledges or an up ledge that goes over the original ledge. But enough about the history and the ideology behind the World's Fair. I think what interests all of us is obviously this huge ring of knee-high granite ledges that surround the fountain. During the World's Fair, the fountain was covered in water, so the cement was sealed with plaster. There were originally 96 jets that encircled this globe that would spray up 20 feet during the fair. Those are hardly ever on, although sometimes they randomly come on, ruining people's sessions. The granite, as you can see, has lasted not only through the 60s and the kind of dark days of New York City's history, but also for the last 25 intense years of skateboarding here. The granite itself is Stony Creek granite out of Connecticut. This is the same granite they use for the base of the Statue of Liberty. You find this in a lot of New York City and East Coast plazas, and we'll see this again and again when we start looking more closely at some of these skate spots. Now, you may recognize this globe, even if you don't skate, as like the backdrop of Craig Mack's Flava in Your Ear video. It's also in A Tribe Called Quest award tour video. The Beastie Boys pose in front of it for the liner notes of the License to Ill album. In other words, it has like a kind of equally significant legacy in hip hop and popular culture as it does in skateboarding. For a long time, skateboarding in New York City in the 90s meant skateboarding in Manhattan, in Midtown or downtown. It meant the Banks, Astor Place, Washington Square Park, or any of the Midtown plazas that you could skate. But around 1994, the way I heard it, a bunch of Queens skaters like Rodney Torres and Gio Moya, Danny Falla started to convince people to come out to Flushing to skate this spot. It's a 40-minute subway ride and almost a mile on a skateboard to give you a sense of how big and how remote this spot is. So I think actually one of the appeals of this is that skaters with cars could come here. This part of Queens, in a way like so close to Long Island, a lot of the sort of most legendary things that have gone down over that grate were done by Long Island skaters. And I'm thinking of James Rares' switch flip, switchback tails, Gino's back lip over the grate, and the 360 shove it over the great gap. What makes this such a proving ground is that it's either a spot for locals who have the Unisphere and the fountain in their backyard, or it's a spot for people that are on a mission. A team in a van or someone who drives over with their filmer and photographer, they will come to this spot because it's not the sort of spot that you can just get to every day.
Making the impossible possible.
So although this is undeniably a New York spot, this is not a spot you chill at. This is a spot you go to with a very set idea of what you want to do here, which is kind of what makes like the clips from here so epic. If you took the trouble to come out here for skating, you're probably serious about doing something over the grate. This is that classic, perfect high ledge that I think is kind of in the family of Pier 7, in the family of Freedom Plaza in DC, in the family of Love Park, rest in peace. This is the sort of ledge that like, once you get on, you try to stay on, which is why so many amazing tricks have been done over this grate. The most iconic tricks done here to me are the grind tricks. As someone whose only claim to fame is a slide trick over this grate, I'll be the first to admit that a grind trick over this grate is 1,000 times gnarlier than a slide trick. Slide tricks you just sit on, grind tricks you have to not only grind but balance. So I think major props goes to like people like Javier Nunez and his switch frontside nose grind over this thing, or Brian Wenning's back nose grind pop out in a line over the grate. If you ever watch like people slam on this thing, you'll see why this grate is such a head fuck. And it's because when people slam, you put your hands out and your fingers get stuck in the grate. Like people have broken fingers in this grate, which makes like any trick done over this thing so impressive. Think of like Frankie Spears' backside nose blunt. Or Yage's switch backside lip slide. Or more recently, like Mason's half cab back nose grind, not Crook's. Look at how he's like balanced on that back 180. Or Tiago's nollie 180, switch back nose grind, front half cab out. Those are mind-blowing tricks that are made even better when they're done on this spot. It's not just about the ledge over the grate and the gap. You have all sorts of shit to skate here. In addition to this, you have like that giant set of stairs leading off towards the other fountains. I think Vinny Ponte had the first photo of an ollie. Eli Reed switch ollied it. Barry Scott kickflipped it. You have the kinked manual pads also in Stony Creek granite going down each side of the stairs. So even if you're not a ledge lord or whatever, if you make the mission out here, there's plenty for you to skate here too. Although a lot of people have parents that visited this World's Fair in 1964, and maybe that World's Fair was inspirational to them, it didn't raise nearly enough money as they had intended. I think Robert Moses wanted the fair to generate about $27 million in profit, and it only raised about $11.5 million. And most of that money that they raised was used to demolish the pavilions of the bankrupt exhibitors to the fair. These old structures kind of just languished in ruins for decades. If you were to mention Flushing Meadows to any skateboarder, we probably wouldn't think of the Unisphere. We probably wouldn't think of US Steel. 99.9% of us would be thinking of this ledge. It's one of these wonderful things about skateboarding. The things that mean the most to us are more often than not the things that no one else gives a shit about. Or we end up caring a lot more about high ledges with Stony Creek pink granite than probably Gilmore David Clark would have. So it's thanks to the pioneering generation of Queen skaters in the 90s and the thousands of skaters that have come here over the last 29 years that Flushing Meadows has become the sort of iconic world-class destination skate spot that it is today.